Boyfriend groomed me for 10 years. And from a few small signs, I found out he cheated on me with a minor. Guess his taste never changes. I'm Sarah, 24 years old. My story began when I was just 14, an age when you still believe in rosy dreams and eternal love. My boyfriend at the time, Mark, was 18, 4 years my senior. We met at a small book cafe, a place I often frequented to read after school. He was mature, unlike the other boys my age at school. A gentle smile, a simple question about the book I was reading, and that's how everything started. He was intelligent, humorous, and attentive to the smallest details. To a 14-year-old girl like me back then, he was like a prince stepped out of a fairy tale. From the very first days we knew each other, Mark painted a clear picture of the future. He spoke with unwavering eyes about wanting to build a family with me, describing a cozy wedding, a house with a garden and children running around. I believed him completely and blindly. I gave my whole heart, my trust, and my youth to the future he envisioned. We had no secrets. We shared phone and social media passwords. We even used a shared email account. Our relationship lasted for 10 years. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? I grew up with his love and thought it was the absolute trust of true love, like a fairy tale. And I genuinely believed we were destined by fate. But I was wrong. Meeting him was the most terrible mistake of my life, one I only uncovered after 10 long years. It was all just a perfect facade for a disgusting, manipulative scheme. It started with Mark slowly isolating me from the outside world, right from the beginning of our relationship. Everything happened gradually and subtly, and my naivete at the time prevented me from seeing it. He always wanted me to spend every single moment with him. Literally. If I had plans to go out with friends, he'd convince me to stay home with him and wouldn't let me go. I was so innocent back then. I thought he loved me so much that he wanted to have me all to himself, and I found that romantic. As a result, I gradually drifted away from my old friends. They tried to reach out, but I was always busy with Mark. Group hangouts became less frequent, then stopped completely. Then, my personal hobbies slowly began to revolve around Mark's preferences. I stopped reading, stopped drawing, stopped doing everything I once loved because he said those things were boring and uninteresting. I just kept thinking I was sacrificing for love. Mark also never really introduced me to his family and friends. I only met his parents a few times in passing. His mother seemed pleasant, but his father was always distant. As for his close friends, they were practically non-existent in my life. Whenever I asked about them, he'd say they were too busy or that their personalities wouldn't mesh with mine. So he didn't want us to meet so I wouldn't feel left out. I just thought that was normal. It's love, right? Love is a story between two person, right? I accepted every excuse he gave because I trusted him completely. Now I understand that this was his way of severing every connection I had with the outside world, leaving me with only him, making me easier to manipulate. After almost 9 years living in that perfect facade, things started to change. I don't know exactly when it began, but strange signs, small yet repetitive signs, kept appearing. At the time, I told myself that I'm probably just being too suspicious. First, there was Mark's phone, which used to be left lying around on the table, never locked. But now it was always face down or tucked away in his pocket. If he did set it down, he'd immediately pick it up or flip it over the moment I walked by. Then there was his laptop. Normally, I'd use his laptop whenever I wanted without any issue. But a few months ago, I opened his laptop to look for a recipe. Mark, who was in the living room, suddenly jumped up and roared, asking what I was doing with his laptop without permission. I was completely stunned. He was furious, his face bright red, and he started saying that I knew nothing, that I had invaded his privacy. I felt like I'd been slapped. I felt guilty and apologized to him. I even had to reassure myself that he probably had an important work project on it and was just afraid I'd mess it up. The climax came one time when he was driving me to the supermarket. His phone vibrated, and I reached for it, instinctively going to read the message for him as I had done for the past 10 years. But the moment my hand touched the phone, Mark snatched it back so fast I nearly dropped it. "Don't touch my phone." His voice was ice cold, and his gaze. I had never seen him look at me like that before. I was stunned again, and once more, I apologized. And it wasn't just the secrecy. Mark gradually began to control me more. Wherever I went, whatever I did, who I messaged or called, he'd question me and demand a detailed account. I had to report everything. Each time he'd say it was because he worried about me, telling me not to overthink it. So even though I felt uncomfortable, I couldn't argue. These strange signs kept repeating, and I, Sarah, at 24 years old, began to feel suffocated. 10 years is a long time. I wanted Mark to make a clearer commitment. I was still waiting for the wedding he had promised since I was a 14-year-old girl. But every time I brought it up, Mark would promise that he was saving money, preparing for a grand and surprising wedding, and a fulfilling married life, even when I felt uneasy about his mysterious actions. And when he suddenly became distant, he would pour out those same promises. Then, one day, Mark suddenly said he would propose, on the condition that I move in with him first, to see if we were compatible. This was despite me telling him very early in our relationship that I wasn't comfortable living together before engagement. That was my principle, a personal boundary I always maintained. Mark had once nodded, saying he respected that. But now, he was making this demand. Just like that, he called me eccentric, old-fashioned, and pressured me, saying everyone lives together before marriage now, that it's a compatibility test. He argued that if we got married and then lived together only to find out we weren't compatible, divorce would be much worse. He repeated these words so much that I started to wonder if I was truly too conservative. And finally, I caved. I abandoned a personal boundary for love, for a blind faith in his promise. I naively thought that if I just moved in, he would propose right away. So I broke my old lease and packed my belongings to move into our new home. But the entire process of moving in together was a nightmare. It was his apartment. There was no space for us. He controlled everything, where my belongings should go, what could be kept, and what had to be thrown away. Everything related to me always needed his approval. I had to put nearly half of my things in storage because there was no room. At the time, I just thought these were normal moving troubles, and I endured them for the person I loved. But little did I know, those were the first bricks in building the prison that I myself would have to live in. From the moment I moved in with Mark, my emotions slowly became numb. The eager anticipation I once felt about seeing him vanished without me even noticing. In its place, I felt a heavy, difficult weariness. Sometimes I even wished I didn't have to see him. I wanted my own space. I wanted to breathe. Sounds crazy, right? 10 years together, and I wished my boyfriend wouldn't come home. But it was true. I no longer felt happy or excited when he texted. I only felt an obligation, like shackles. I didn't know when I had started to bear. After about 3 months of living together, I decided to go home and visit my parents alone for the weekend. I told Mark I missed my family too much and needed some time. He was visibly annoyed when I said this, but I insisted on going. And do you know what? The moment the car rolled away from Mark's house, I felt an incredible sense of relief. It was as if I had escaped from a cramped cage. I took a deep breath, and it was the first time I felt like I could truly breathe in 3 months. And that whole weekend, I felt like I was alive again. The feeling was frighteningly clear. I tried to convince myself that I just needed some space. I tried to justify that feeling, pushing it into a hidden corner of my mind. But the intuition wouldn't go away. It simmered like a tiny warning bell in my head. I was too used to justifying Mark, too used to ignoring my own feelings. I'd been doing it for 10 years, and it had become a habit. I had believed in his empty promises, in his sweet lies. I had accepted his manipulation as a part of love. But then, that feeling began to transform into something that wasn't right. And it grew stronger every time Mark tried to control me, every time he avoided my gaze, every time he clutched his phone. The false peace of a 10-year love was about to be torn apart. And I was completely unprepared for what was about to happen. I remember that night vividly. I was sitting on the sofa, pretending to watch TV. But for some reason, my mind was racing with all sorts of thoughts. Mark's phone was on the table, face down as usual. He was in the kitchen, probably making coffee. I stared at the phone. My heart pounded. I knew I shouldn't, but the nagging feeling that something was wrong, which had been building for days, urged me on. I couldn't live in this damned uncertainty anymore. My hand reached out, trembling, and I grabbed the phone. Fortunately, Mark hadn't removed my fingerprint from the device. The screen unlocked, and my intuition hadn't been wrong. I scrolled to the most recent message from an unsaved, unfamiliar number. My vision blurred as I read its content. I couldn't believe my eyes. Last night was wonderful. Meeting you truly is the joy of my life. What the hell was this? I felt like a rock had landed on my chest, making it hard to breathe. My hands trembled. Cheating? That was the only word I could think of. Just then, Mark walked into the living room and saw me holding his phone. He froze. His face went as white as a sheet. I didn't say a word. I just held up the phone, pointing it towards him, showing him what I was reading. He hung his head. "Sarah, I can explain." I looked him straight in the eyes, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Explain, Mark. Explain what the hell is going on." He started to stammer, fumbling for words. I made a mistake. I got a blowjob from another woman, but I've blocked her, but she keeps trying to contact me," he said, his voice trembling, looking utterly remorseful. "I'm sorry. I'm so ashamed and feel so guilty. I was looking for the right time to tell you." Hearing him say that, a strange conflict suddenly arose within me. Part of me felt intense pain, as if my whole world had just crumbled. But another part of me saw a glimmer of hope. I was so used to Mark telling me sweet things and making empty promises. I was used to believing him. And at that moment, I wanted to believe this was just a small mistake, a slip-up in a 10-year relationship. I wanted to believe he still loved me, and this was just a nightmare. That blindness, it had deeply ingrained itself in me. I just stood there, looking at him, trying to find a logical explanation to reassure myself. The agonizing mix of pain and suspicion continued to gnaw at me. Mark kept blubbering apologies, tears streaming down his face, but I knew, my gut told me, he was still lying. What he was saying wasn't the whole truth. It was just the tip of the iceberg. I knew I had to dig deeper, so I pretended to forgive him. And then I waited. I waited a few days until Mark went to shower. I pretended to be watching TV, but my ears were perked up, listening for the sound of water in the bathroom. When the bathroom door closed and the water started running, I knew this was my chance. My heart pounded as if it wanted to leap out of my chest. I stealthily crept into the bedroom, where Mark had left his phone on the nightstand. My hands trembled so much, I almost dropped the phone. I unlocked the screen. Mark had forgotten that I still had my fingerprint on his phone. A fatal mistake. I immediately went to his messages. This time I didn't just look at the most recent one. I scrolled up and up and up, and then I saw it. A message Mark had sent to an unknown number, but this time the content was 100 times more horrifying. I told my girlfriend that I cheated. We might not be able to see each other for a while. If you need me, message me on Insta. My heart shattered into a million pieces. It wasn't just a momentary lapse of weakness. He had admitted to cheating on me with someone else, but I couldn't stop there. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I needed to know more. I needed to know everything. ... I swiped over to Instagram, and just as I suspected, Mark had a second Instagram account. One I'd never known about, with no trace of me on his friends list, no photos of us. It was full of cool shots of him and strange posts. More importantly, it was where he privately messaged, DM, all sorts of women. I started scrolling through the conversations. Message after message. Every line of text, every photo that appeared, felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I saw flirtatious messages, vulgar language, intimate photos he'd sent to other women. Every picture I saw made me want to vomit. The feeling of disgust rose to my throat. Then I looked at the timestamps. Some conversations had been going on for 2 years, and later messages hinted that he had slept with one of them for a year. If my relationship with Mark was 10 years long, then at least one of those years, he had been cheating behind my back. Yet I was still here, naively enduring and trusting his empty promises. He had been living a double life, blatantly deceiving me. The 10 years I thought were beautiful were now nothing but lies. I kept scrolling. I don't know why I continued. My gut kept telling me there was something more. Perhaps I needed to know everything, or perhaps I wanted to torment myself to the extreme. Then I saw another profile belonging to a girl who looked much younger than the others. I clicked on it, and then my world completely collapsed. In her bio, it stated the name of a nearby high school and a graduation year, 2 years prior. This meant that when Mark started messaging this girl, she was just in high school, only 15 years old. From a story of infidelity, it had now become an entirely different scenario. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had also abused a child. A feeling of absolute disgust surged from the depths of my being. A terrible wave of nausea washed over me. I had to cover my mouth to keep from vomiting. My hands shook uncontrollably, and my whole body started to tremble. I wanted to throw that phone against the wall, smash it into pieces, and rip apart everything I had seen. Above, there was an abundance of evidence. So much. Pictures, explicit messages that I cannot repeat here. The disgusting words Mark used to flirt with that girl. He even compared me to her, saying that she looked much better than me, that the kid made him more interested. He had done these things with a minor, behind my back, while I naively believed I had a fairy tale love. My mind reeled. My world had just been turned upside down. This wasn't just about a boyfriend cheating anymore. This was a crime. I took screenshots of everything, all the messages, all the images, all the profiles. I sent them to myself, via email, Facebook, anywhere I could. I needed evidence. I needed to ensure these things would never disappear. When I finished, I just wanted to vanish. I couldn't stay there another second. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't breathe in the same air as him. I had to go, immediately. I ran from that apartment, ran from that disgusting place. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to leave. Tears streamed down my face, uncontrollably. I drove like a maniac, my mind a whirlwind. Finally, I stopped at Chloe's house, my only remaining close friend. I rang the doorbell repeatedly, tears blurring my vision. Chloe opened the door, saw me in that state, and without a word, pulled me inside. I collapsed onto the living room floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Chloe knelt beside me, hugging me tight. I tried to tell her, tried to voice everything I had just seen. Each word, each sentence, was choked in my throat. I handed her my phone, showing her the photos, the messages. Chloe looked through them, and I saw her eyes change, from worry to shock, then to outrage. She squeezed my hand tightly. Chloe's voice trembled as she asked if I remembered her telling me about how Mark controlled me, about how he never wanted me to have my own friends, but to stay within his world. This was the reason, she said. She told me he had led me on for the past 10 years with a perfect facade. Hearing those words from Chloe, another pain, even more horrific than the betrayal, washed over me. It wasn't just that he cheated on me. It was about how incredibly stupid I had been. I had trusted someone like that for a decade. I had let him make me lose myself, alienate everyone. I felt disgusted with myself, disgusted for defending him, for justifying his strange behaviors. I didn't want to think about how many times I had been intimate with him after he had just slept with a child. The thought made me want to vomit. Oh yeah, I had unknowingly helped him hide his crimes. I whispered, my voice hoarse. I had trusted him blindly, and that might have allowed him to continue harming other young girls. The guilt weighed on me like a stone. Chloe held me tighter. No, Sarah, this isn't your fault. You are a victim, and now you have to act. I looked at Chloe, tears still streaming down my face. Act? What action? Call the police, Chloe said bluntly. This isn't just about infidelity anymore, Sarah. This is a crime. This isn't just about you anymore. This is about those children. Chloe's words were a slap that woke me up. She was right. This wasn't just my pain. This was about justice. It was about stopping Mark from harming anyone else. That decision was incredibly difficult, but it was also a liberation. I took out my phone, opening the evidence I'd captured. My hands still trembled, but this time not from fear, but from a newfound determination. With Chloe's help, I started looking up police numbers and victim support organizations. I felt scared and shaky, but I knew this was the only right thing to do. I couldn't let someone like Mark go free any longer. Couldn't let someone like that continue to destroy anyone else's life. After reporting to the police, I felt a slight sense of relief, but the pain and disgust remained. I couldn't go back to that apartment. Couldn't. Not for another second. I broke up with Mark via text message. I didn't want to face him anymore. Didn't want to see that deceitful face ever again. I simply sent a short message. It's over. I know everything. The evidence is secured. The police are handling it. I blocked his number immediately, blocked him on all social media. I didn't need to hear any more lies from him. My recovery plan will be a long journey. The first thing I did was get an STI test. Just the thought of it was enough to make me nauseous again. Waiting for the results, every second felt like hell. I prayed I hadn't contracted anything from that disgusting person. After that, I knew I needed therapy. I needed a professional to help me overcome this horrific trauma. 10 years of manipulation, deception, and now this disgusting truth. I need to learn to love myself again, to trust myself again, to reclaim the self-respect that was trampled upon. And then, family. That's another burden. I have to tell my parents. They've always trusted Mark. My mom, especially, adored him. Always thought he was the perfect match for me, the ideal future son-in-law. How can I tell her that the man she cherished is a liar, an abuser, a criminal? My mom will surely be shocked and heartbroken, perhaps even in disbelief. I know they'll be very disappointed, not just in Mark, but also in me for being so blind. But I have to do it. I can't hide this truth any longer. I need their support, and they have a right to know the real man I once loved. Everything is a mess, but at least I'm heading in the right direction. At least I'm fighting, and I believe that one day I will get through this. I will be a stronger, wiser Sarah, and I will never let someone like Mark into my life again. This journey has truly been a nightmare, one I never thought I'd have to experience. But from this mess, I've learned some incredibly tough lessons, and I want to share them with all of you. First, always trust your gut feeling. That little voice in your head, that nameless sense of unease, I tried so hard to ignore for so long. Never dismiss it. It's your built-in protection mechanism. Those red flags, no matter how small, are there to warn you. Not for you to try and explain away. Don't rationalize them. Second, never give up your boundaries for anyone. I did that. I gave up my privacy, my friends, my principles about living together, all just to keep a relationship I thought was perfect. Don't let anyone manipulate you to the point where you lose yourself. Your worth comes from who you are, not from whose partner you are. Third, if you feel something is wrong in your relationship, investigate. I know it's incredibly difficult and terrifying, but sometimes you have to. Don't let yourself be led astray like I was. Don't let blind trust shield you from the truth. And finally, the most important thing, if you are a victim of abuse, or even just suspect someone else is, please seek help. Don't stay silent. Don't suffer alone. There are people ready to listen, ready to help you. I had Chloe, and I'm more grateful for her than anything. I want to extend my sincerest thanks to all of you who commented on my Reddit post. Your advice, the stories you shared, even if just a few lines, truly empowered me, helping me see things clearly and make the right decision. Thank you for not leaving me alone. Currently, I'm on the path to recovery. I don't know what the future holds, how long it will take me to heal, or how the legal case will unfold. But one thing I know for sure, I will never allow myself to be taken advantage of like that again. I will be stronger. I will trust myself. And I will fight for justice, not just for myself, but for anyone else who has been a victim of that person.
Thank you for listening to today's story from the Guilty Notes channel. If this story resonated with you, please like, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional, real-life stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.